Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one we're going to be talking about what happens when reality strikes the narcissist. Because if you've observed the narcissist over a period of time, it's clear that they're doing everything they possibly can to keep themselves out of reality. They build a fantasy world. They create all of these illusions. What for? To protect themselves. It's a defense mechanism. Because otherwise, if they were open to reality, it would overpower and overwhelm them. They wouldn't be able to handle it because reality would be against them. The reality is that they are very messed up people. They're shame-based and they're doing everything they can to avoid reflecting on their shame. And yet they have so many triggers. There are so many different things that can set them off. So many things that can pull them back to reality. And that's how sometimes you may have noticed that you strike the narcissist with reality. You cause them to feel a certain way just by bringing up things that they saw as a reflection of themselves. Because when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's like navigating a minefield. It's very difficult to not set them off. Because they're very fragile, insecure people. And they're doing everything they can to exist in this little bubble. Because in this bubble, they're very special and entitled. They have things the way that they want them to be, in a way that serves them. Even though the reality is that they're actually self-absorbed and they're very exploitative. And this is why they deny reality. This is why they shut it out. This is why they don't want anything to do with it. Because reality would overpower them. And that's why they run away from it. They shut it out. They suppress these feelings within themselves. They disown the parts of themselves that they don't like and assign them to you. They blame you for everything. They make you feel like it's all your fault. As though it's your problem and you have to deal with it. They put it all onto you. Because the last thing they ever want to have to do is to confront reality. They're doing everything they possibly can to run away from it. And that's how they're like predators. They're very exploitative. They're constantly just outwardly focused, looking for a way to just dump their emotional garbage onto someone. To make someone else feel the way that they do. Because it's all about control. They're very insecure because they live in a false reality. And that's why they have to manipulate you. They lie to you, they deceive you. They string you along with future faking. They gaslight you. They have all of these different illusions. And you get pulled into this world believing that it's real. You see the way that they're promoting this world and how they're promoting themselves to be a certain way. And so you think, oh, yeah, this looks good. This seems quite accommodating, welcoming. This seems like it could be worthy of my time. It could be worthy of my investment if I invest into it. And so then you give it a try. You fall for the manipulation because you believe that what you're seeing is real. You fall for this illusion. And then they've got you under a spell. And then you're there, you're investing your time, your energy, your money into this person. And they're just making you believe that at some point you're going to get a return. You're going to see more of this vision of what you saw at the beginning, this false character they displayed to you. When they made you believe in all these things that were going to happen if you were to invest your time into them. So then they just put it further ahead in the future. And then if you keep confronting them, if you're still on them about it, and if they fear that you're going to stop the investment, you're going to stop giving them that supply, the energy that they need, that upholds the false self and sustains the illusion, if they fear that they're going to lose that, then what they do then is they turn against you, they devalue you, and they make it out like something is wrong with you. They will blame you. They will say that you have no right to desire that from them. Who are you? Who are you to come into their life and expect any kind of return or benefit from them? Never mind what they made you believe at the beginning or what you invested into them. Or in some situations, they may even shame you for what they used to bait you in with, what they used to lure you in, or what it was with the future faking. And despite that, they will still devalue you, they will put you down and use this to uphold this facade, this false image. But of course, by this point, you're starting to realize that. Not only at this point may reality strike the narcissist, reality is also sinking in for you because you're starting to realize, hold on a minute, you've got to be dealing with a fraudster, a con artist. This can't actually be real because it just doesn't happen like that in reality. Typically, you invest your time, your money, your energy, your resources into something, into a relationship. And, typically you meet each other halfway, there's compromise. And you evolve together, you grow together. Typically, it's not just you doing everything, all of the work. You're not just the only one in that situation who's constantly investing everything, giving all of your time and energy, and getting nothing back. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen unless you're dealing with a con artist. And if you're dealing with a con artist, that means they're displaying a false image to you. And the person, this image that they're presenting to you, that's not even them. That's not even real. Because if it was real, it would be real. They wouldn't be robbing you of your time, your energy, your money, your resources. That wouldn't be happening. And yet, despite that, they still want to upkeep this facade because it's getting them supply. It's making them feel powerful, desirable. When they leave you feeling like you're just not good enough or you did something wrong, or they shame you for wanting a certain thing from them, that's making them feel powerful and desirable, as long as they can get you to still believe in the false image. And then also by putting you down, it's making them feel powerful, it's uplifting them, it's giving them energy, supply. And then they can go off and present this false image to someone else as well, and then get supply that way. They don't really care about it, they're not passionate about it, it doesn't mean anything to them. They just use it for supply. That character you saw at the beginning, they just use it for supply. Because it makes them feel better about themselves when they can be anything other than their true selves. And that's why they do it. Because again, they're running away from themselves. They want nothing to do with reality. They want nothing to do with who they actually are. And this is why they hate peace, stability, predictability. They hate all of that. They want things to be chaotic, unstable. They never want there to be any peace, because then that would mean that things would have to be real, normal, consistent, stable. People would have to show up as they actually are. And if they were to do that, they would immediately be at a disadvantage, because you wouldn't want anything to do with them. No one would want that. If they reveal themselves as they actually are, without hiding anything, that wouldn't be any good for them. And this is why they manipulate you. This is why they hold on to the illusion so strongly. This is why they never want to let it go, because that's the only way they're going to get any energy out of you. If they act like they're on a similar level to you, or when you don't fall for that illusion, then they just pull you down to their level and make you believe that they're above you. That's the game that they play. That's what they have to do. But of course, there are moments when reality does strike the narcissist. This is when you confront them. This is when you hold them accountable. This is when you display the image that they portray to you initially. And then just point out the inconsistencies. Point out how different this image is to who they are now. Point out how different it is, what they led you to believe it was going to be, and what it's like now. The incongruencies. Point that out to them. You're hitting them with reality. And they can't take it. They can't deal with it. Because if they haven't got that, then they have to fall back on what they do have and what they don't want to be. And that's just a shameful person who feels inadequate. They feel like they were not good enough. They could never measure up to you. That's what they feel deep down inside, but they don't want to accept that. They don't want to deal with it. And this is why when you do strike the narcissist with reality, what happens is, instead of feeling the shame, they fight against it. It's an internal battle for them. And then they get angry, they rage. Because a narcissist is not going to accept that they feel inadequate. They're not going to accept that they feel like they're not good enough, because then they would lose that balance of power. They would lose the power in the relationship. You would gain power over them by realizing that, yes, they are inadequate, they're not good enough for you. You may have had your suspicions about that all along, but then when they actually come to you and they admit it, they reveal that to you. And yeah, they may discredit you and devalue you and make you feel like you're not who you are. They may criticize and devalue your self-image, and that will be effective on you, because they do not align with your self-image. And that's how it falls apart when you're around them. This is why by the end of the relationship, you don't even know who you are. And this happens to so many people. Narcissistic abuse erases your identity because you're around someone who does not align with your self-image. And yet the entire time they're making you believe that they do, because they're covert narcissists. And they do that so that they can get what they want from you. But the reality is, they do not align with you in any sort of way. They're nothing like you. Narcissists are manipulative, abusive, exploitative. They're horrible people. They only care about themselves. All they care about is their own selfish instant gratification. And that's what they're teaching you and training you while they're around you. And it's causing you to become more and more like them the longer they got around them and believing in their false image. And this then affects your self-image to the point where by the end of the relationship, you don't even know who you are anymore. And it's all about control for them, because from the point where you no longer believe in the illusions that they're portraying to you, because I mean, you're investing so much of yourself into the relationship and you get nothing back. So of course you begin to question everything, and you see that, hold on a minute, if this was really them, then certain behaviors, certain actions will be congruent with this image. And yet you're investing everything, you're doing everything for them, and you're not getting anything back. So then you start to question things. You may even confront them on it, and then they turn against you, they devalue you. And that's all about control from that point on, because if you are able to be yourself, have your independence, your own autonomy, where you can think for yourself, you can do what you want to do, you can be who you want to be, all of this threatens their false self with the illusion. Because if you're real, your light just naturally exposes them. And this is why it's so important for them, because they feel insecure when they're around you. Because you're real and they're just pretending to be something that they're not. They're just pretending to be like you so that they can be around you and get the benefits and conveniences that they want from you. But that's not really them. That's not really what they're about. They're predators. They're exploitative. And that's why when you start to catch on to them, they have to devalue you. They have to micromanage you to the point where you can't even think for yourself. It's like you can't do anything on your own. They're always there. They're suffocating you. And they control everything. They restrict your movements. Because everything you're doing and thinking, all of these things, it demonstrates your independence, your autonomy, your individuality, your authenticity, which are all things that they do not have. They don't possess any of those things. And you having those things exposes them. It exposes their fraudulent and deceptive nature. And that's why they have to micromanage everything. It's why they have to control you. Because otherwise, if you're free to think for yourself and just do as you please, you have your own independence, your own autonomy, all of these things are going to threaten their control. And if they don't have control over you, then they feel insecure. And it causes the false reality to crumble. You begin to see through the false image that they display to you. And once you start to see that they actually feel inadequate, that they know they're not good enough for you, it's just humiliating for them. Because they don't get any more energy, they don't get any more supply from you. And that's why they then fight, they get angry, they rage at you. Because they don't want you to see that they are actually inadequate. And keep in mind as well, the way that they fight, the way that they rage at you, you can see that it's out of insecurity, because they're not actually doing anything about it. They're not actually doing anything that even aligns with this proposed self-image that they initially displayed to you. They're not doing anything that aligns with that. And you're not even able to be yourself around them. They have to destabilize you. So this all just reveals insecurity. It all just reveals that they're not who they say they are. And that's why so many things trigger the narcissist. reality strikes them every time. Because deep down they know that they're not real, that they are inauthentic, that they are manipulative, that they are deceiving you. Deep down they know that. And this is why there's all of these illusions, all of this gaslighting. This is why they do all of the things that they do. This is why they just can't even be normal. They've got to devalue you. They've got to put you down. They've got to leave you broken. Because otherwise, just your natural way of being, the natural way that you actually are, all of this exposes them. It reveals that they're just a predator. They're just there to ruthlessly exploit you. And they're exploiting you because they have nothing in common with you. No shared interest, they're nothing like you. And this is why the longer you spend around them, the more drained you feel. Because they're exploiting you for your energy, for that supply, which they do not possess already. They don't have that. They get that from you by making you believe that they're the same as you. They disguise, they conceal themselves. But the reality is that they're nothing like you. They're the opposite of you. And so they're robbing your energy, and that's how the more time you spend around them, the more depleted you feel. I can't think about it. If the narcissist is really who they say they are, if that false image, that false self that they initially displayed to you was actually them, it was real, you wouldn't be feeling the way that you feel. You wouldn't be feeling so tired, so drained, so depleted, exhausted. That wouldn't be happening because they would be able to reciprocate that same energy back to you. So why would you end up feeling depleted? You do because they're con artists, they're fraudsters, they're liars, cheaters. They're deceiving you. They're not the same as you. And this image that they're presenting to you is not really them. It's just something they took on because they know that it will get them the supply or the benefits, the conveniences that they want from people. But it's not real, and that's why once they've targeted you, gradually you begin to feel depleted, exhausted. You're giving out and you're getting nothing back because they're not the same as you. And this is why when you confront them, or just anything that's outside of their control, they have to micromanage everything because they're terrified of being exposed. And not just being exposed as the angry, exploitative predator that they are, but also what's underneath that, the person who feels inadequate. Because that's who they really feel deep down, and that's why they fake these characters that they use to manipulate people. That's why they have to do that. And so, yeah, reality does strike the narcissist. It does happen. They do get triggered when they're confronted, or even just certain things, because they can be very paranoid after all of the things that they have done to people. They might see someone who looks like someone who they victimized in the past, or hearing someone talk about a similar situation, and talking about the consequences that person received for doing what they did. Just similar things like that. There's so many different triggers that they have. Of course, now here's a very important point. Of course they're going to have these triggers. Of course they're going to have these emotional triggers when reality strikes them and they begin to feel very afraid, or they begin to feel shame, which then turns into anger and rage. Of course that's going to happen, because think about it. They've been on that frequency. They've been on that wavelength at some point in time. They've operated on it. They've used it to manipulate, to exploit people. And so when it comes up again, they have a memory. So when certain things are presented to them, and then reality then strikes them. Even though they've constructed this facade, this false reality, these fabrications, these certain triggers make them reflect on who they really are as a result of their actions and behaviors. And typically they do get angry, they do rage, or they become passive aggressive. They may even just ghost you, silent treatment, smear you. These are all responses to their own triggers, to reality that they can't handle, they can't deal with. Because they just can't accept who they are. And let's go a little bit deeper into this now. I mean, again, it's not so much that they're trying to hide that they're an angry, exploitative predator who preys on people and deceives them. It goes deeper than that. They're trying to hide that deep down inside, they feel inadequate. They feel like they're not good enough. And that was the reason why they had to create this mask, why they had to become a predator, exploitative, abusive, to where they then ended up harming you, robbing you. That's what they're really trying to hide. And that's why they will become angry. That's why they will just rip their mask off and show you the monster that is underneath that mask, to intimidate you, to scare you. That's a distraction. That's a diversion from something else. They want you to see how ugly they are underneath that mask. They want that to scare you, to intimidate you. They want you to see them as this horrible person who got one over on you. They exploited you. They robbed you. They cheated on you. They abused you. For months, even years, they wasted years of your life. They stole your life from you. Yeah, they want you to focus on that. When they rip off that mask, when they show you who they are. Because that's a distraction. That's a diversion from something far worse that they do not want you to see. And that's that they're actually full of shame. They hate themselves. They feel inadequate. But to defend themselves against the shame, against the feelings of inadequacy, they get angry. They rage. They dominate and control you. To act like they're something big, they're powerful, they're in control. They're someone now because they're on top of you. When no, it's all an act. That's an act too. They're not really the big man that they think they are. It's all an act. It's to defend against their shame, their feelings of inadequacy. And that's why they'd rather just distract you with this monster acting like they're so mean, they're so tough. But they do all of these things to you. They harm you. They intimidate you. They distract you with that because they don't want you to see what's deeper, and that is their feelings of inadequacy. Feeling unworthy, not good enough. And that's the core of any personality disorder, where they act in such ways where they're harming people. It's because deep down they feel inadequate. So they figure that if they just become abusive, if they just start devaluing you, harming you, cheating on you, lying to you, stealing from you, smearing you, doing all of these things, it distracts everyone and it distracts themselves from their own feelings of inadequacy. Because if they're too busy putting you down, making you feel like you're nothing, or if they're playing the victim and getting everyone to see you as the abuser, it distracts everyone from something. Everything a narcissist does, it's all just a distraction from how deep down they feel inadequate. That's why they run from reality. That's why they do all of the things that they do. It's why they manipulated you initially. It's why they love bombed you. It's why when you started to catch on, they then turned against you, they devalued you. It's why they lied to you, future faked, triangulated you with other people, smeared your name. They did all of those things. And sometimes they got very angry, or maybe passive aggressive. They lashed out at you. Everything that they do, it's all a distraction. Whether it's positive action, or if it's their narcissistic rage, whatever it is, it's all a distraction from their shame. They are doing everything they can to avoid reflecting on their shame, on their feelings of inadequacy, of their feelings of not being good enough for you. It's to divert your attention because, of course, if they're turning against you, they're blaming you, devaluing you, if they're getting angry at you, if they're lashing out at you, if they're smearing you, all of these things, it's taking the focus away from them and their inadequacies because they don't want to feel inadequate, even though deep down they do. They have to feel like they're perfect, like they're faultless and flawless. And that's why they do all of the things that they do, because deep down they can't accept that they're not good enough. They can't accept that they're broken, damaged people. And that's why they act this way. That's why they treat us in the way that they do. That's why everything's so chaotic and unstable. It's because they can't accept their own inadequacies. They don't want to accept that they're not good enough for you. So they mask it with arrogance and entitlement as though they deserve everything from you. And actually they deserve more than what you're able to even give. It's all just a mask. Because deep down they feel inadequate. They feel like they deserve nothing. But then of course that means that then they have to go if they're not good enough. Well, it means that they have to do more for you and then you have the power. So, of course, someone with this mindset, someone who cannot accept themselves, their own flaws, their own deficiencies, they live in a lie. They're living in a false reality. and it constantly catches up with them. There are triggers everywhere that they're constantly trying to run from. And all of the things that they have done to people to try and bury their shame, these triggers keep going up. And all of us, we are all triggers to the narcissist, because they have harmed us, they have bruised us, whether physically or emotionally. They've left psychological scars, and they see this in us. These communities, everything, it's all a trigger for them. It reminds them what monsters they are. But remember, sometimes they will take off that mask if they have to. They will just come out and say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, you deserved it. Because then, at least then, it makes them feel powerful, dominant, in control. Better than for them to feel how they really feel underneath that, which is what? Powerless, insecure, helpless, afraid, worthless, inadequate. That's why they rip off that mask when you're on them, when you're confronting them. That's why they show you how ugly they are. Because it's a mask. It's masking how inadequate they feel deep down. And that's why sociopaths, psychopaths, that's why they do the things they do. That's why they go and rape people, murder them. Because deep down they feel inadequate. But then they put on this mask. They act like they're something tough. They act like they're a monster. Because at least then they can feel powerful, they can feel in control. Better than to feel like they have no control. Or they have no impact on anything, they're nothing. That's why they do it. And yeah, it's kind of like in, if you've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's Leatherface. I mean, really, he's just like a scared little boy who was neglected and just feels inadequate. He feels worthless. And because he's craving a sense of significance, he wants to be noticed. He wants to feel like he's something. So what does he do? He goes around and just saws off people's faces, wears it as a mask. And then he feels like he is something, he is someone. And this is the same thing as what narcissists do. They wear a mask and they've stolen these qualities, these traits from other people before you. And they're using that, they're presenting it to you so that you may fall for it, or they may even use a mirror just to reflect yourself back to you, to lure you in. And as long as you believe in that mirror, or you believe in the mask that they're wearing, they'll play along with you because they're still getting something out of you. But then gradually you're being depleted and all you're getting is lies and future faking. So when you catch on to that, you confront them, then they'll start to show you the ugliness underneath the mask. They'll give you a glimpse of it. They will turn against you. They will devalue you. They will rage. They will become passive aggressive. They'll show you what a monster they can be, because when you're not going along with it, when you're not believing in the mask, the illusions that they're displaying to you, they begin to feel inadequate. They begin to feel like they're not good enough, and that's why they become a monster. That's why they lash out at you. That's why they dominate and control you for that reason. So that you don't just come on top of them with this realization that they're just not good enough. That they're not good enough to be around you. They're inadequate. Because that's what this is. That's why they wear a mask. That's why they manipulate you, because they just don't even belong around you. This is why they become such a monster towards you. Because they're just not good enough. And yet they wanted to be around you. They wanted to extract your characteristics, your energy, your resources. And so they had to wear a mask to get in with you, or they had to mirror you. And it made them feel special initially, because they can be quite arrogant and entitled. And then you started to see through it. You started to confront them. You no longer felt for their lives a future vacant. And then they began to feel inadequate. They do anything to avoid feeling their shame. It goes back to that childhood wound where they were neglected. They felt completely worthless. Like they're not even worthy to be alive. Like they have no belonging to anything, not even their own family. That's how they felt. And they will do anything to distract themselves to not have to feel that way. They will fight, they will become a monster, they will get angry, they will hurt you. They will ruin your life. They will destroy a genuine good person's life just to avoid having to reflect on their own painful feelings of rejection, of inadequacy. That's what they will do. And this is it. I mean, whenever you see someone who's acting monstrous, abusive, yeah, at some level that is a predator, that is an abuser. But that's also a mask to hide what? Their shame, their feelings of inadequacy, because that is the true reality. The reality of the narcissist is that they feel inadequate. They feel like they're not good enough for anything, because they were neglected in childhood and they never confronted those wounds. They never dealt with them. They never accepted that that's how they felt. And that's what they're trying to hide. That's what they're trying to run from, is that they feel inadequate. And this is most people today. Most people today feel inadequate. They feel like they're imposters deep down. Like they don't deserve to be where they're at. Because a lot of people these days are fake. They are pretending to be something they're not. They didn't do the inner work. They didn't resolve their childhood traumas. They never even tried to do that. And that's why these types of people, when something happens, when something goes wrong, what do they not do? They do not feel self-conscious. They don't feel any shame. They don't feel bad about themselves. Now that's how you know when someone has done the work, or when someone is willing to do the work, is that they do feel self-conscious. And that's whether they've done something or if someone else has done something wrong. Instantly, they're going to feel conscious of themselves because they're connected to themselves. So instantly, when something happens, when something goes wrong, you're going to feel the shame. Whether it's something that you did wrong or if someone did something wrong to you, it triggers you to feel conscious of yourself. If you are connected to yourself. But as for the narcissist, they just couldn't accept it. They couldn't accept it in their childhood that they were neglected or abused. That their narcissistic parent didn't want them or didn't care about them, didn't appreciate them. They couldn't accept that, so they ran away from it by creating a false self. which then cause them to lose consciousness of themselves. It caused them to lose touch with who they are. And that's how they now have an underdeveloped self, an arrested emotional development, which has led them to be very immature, very childish, because they're children stuck in adult bodies. They haven't done anything at work. They've been running from themselves their entire lives. And so, yeah, reality constantly strikes them. And reality has also struck many of us, I'm sure, from dealing with them. Because initially you may have believed in this mask, you may have fallen for these lies. You may have believed what they were displaying to you initially. And then reality struck you. They woke you up, you began to realize, hold on a minute, this person isn't who they portray themselves to be. That's not really them. Because if that was them, then where are they now? And actually what you find is that the better everything is, the better that you are for them, the more you do for them, the more you try to make everything perfect, you try to make them happy, the better of a person you are. Even the more you let them walk all over you, you be their doormat. The more you do all of that, it just makes things worse. It just reveals who and what they really are. It brings out the worst in them, the monster. That doesn't sustain the false character. Because deep down they know that that isn't them. That's just to lure you in. It's just a mask. And underneath that mask is another mask, where they are the monster. And then underneath that mask is what's left of their core. When deep down they feel inadequate, they have this arrested emotional development in their childhood where they were neglected, abused. Yeah, that's what's at their core. And they do not want to go there. They do not want anything to do with it. That's where they fight. That's where they get angry. That's where they blame you. They lash out at you. That's how they cause so much destruction. It's because deep down they just can't accept that they feel they're not enough. And so they run from it and they just lie. Their entire life is a lie of feeling like they're something when they're not. Pretending that everything's okay and that they're happy when they're not. Because they've still got these core wounds that they've never attended to, they've never resolved. And, well, as for us, I mean, many of us, naturally, we just go within, we self-reflect. We question ourselves, we doubt ourselves automatically. As codependent, people pleasers, empaths, we are connected to ourselves, and that's how they love using us as a source of supply. They poke at us, jab at us. They make us feel bad about ourselves. They shame us because they know that we are conscious of ourselves and that we're not going to fight against being conscious of ourselves. Because we have a good relationship with ourselves. We know ourselves. And that's typically why they picked you. Or maybe why they held on to you. is because you are connected to yourself. You are conscious of yourself. And that's what makes you a good source of supply. It's that you're real, you're authentic, you're present, you show up as yourself. But then they also like to disconnect you from yourself as well. Because typically, although you're conscious of yourself, you accept yourself, you have a good relationship with yourself. So it feels better for them if they can take on that energy and then just give you theirs. This is what they do. This is the process in their minds. And it's all because deep down they feel inadequate. And so reality constantly strikes them while they're out trying to live this lie, trying to pretend like there's something they're not. I mean, how can they be happy? How can they be anything when at some level they are conscious of how they were treated in their childhood and how that made them feel inadequate and like they're not good enough, and how that then caused them to hurt other people because they felt it was better for them to lash out, rage, attack people, exploit them, than to accept that they're inadequate. Or at least that's what they were taught to believe about themselves in childhood. I'm not saying that that child that they were was inadequate. Of course not. I mean, no parent should make a child feel that way. But that's how they were made to feel, and that's what caused them to create a false self. And as long as people go along with it, as long as they believe in it, then at least for a short amount of time, the narcissist is normally okay. But then they can't reciprocate. If you're around them long enough, you get depleted, exhausted. And if you're still expecting something in return, if you're expecting to get what they initially displayed to you, then they start to get angry. Then they turn against you because they can't give you that. They can't be something that they're not. And that's why they get angry about it. They get angry because it takes them right back to their childhood with a narcissistic parent who may have expected something from them and they couldn't be that. They felt inadequate. So that's why they get angry about it, when you hold them up to something. Someone who's more confident or is actually genuine in their worth and abilities of what they display to you, they're typically going to go and achieve what they said they were going to do. They're not going to get angry about you for it. And I mean, all of you, just look at yourself and how you were in the relationship. You kept giving and giving, doing and doing. You ended up doing far more than what you initially agreed to do, than what was initially set out for you. You did far more than that. And they could even reciprocate a fraction of what you were doing for them. Because that's just how it is, you know, when you're confident, when you know your worth, when you're able. But unfortunately, I mean, we're dealing with someone who's not on our level. They can't reciprocate what we're putting out. Deep down, they felt inadequate, but they wore a mask. They had to feel entitled to us. But then gradually, our health, our finances, everything began to decline because we were around someone who actually could not sustain us. And that's how that then happened. And that's what we got to accept. And, you know, as it says in the Bible, even though I'm not really religious, but I do like this quote: cast not your pearls into swine, lest they trample them. It's very true. But yeah, reality will constantly strike them. I mean, they're living a lie. They're living a fake life. They're pretending to be something they're not. They're using these false characters to manipulate you. And it causes them to be very paranoid because they were on that wavelength before. So they get triggered all the time. They get pulled back onto that frequency where they were at, when they were deceiving you, exploiting you, harming you. They don't just get away with it. And this is why many of them, because of the shame, the inadequacy, the feelings they don't want to deal with, they have all of these unhealthy coping strategies. They may drink excessively, use drugs, and they're constantly seeking new sources, just doing anything to distract themselves. They're even engaged in immoral or corrupt activities, illegal activities. And it's all just to defend against their own feelings of inadequacy. Because deep down they feel like they're not good enough. And it's kind of funny because they feel like they're not good enough even though they never actually put in the work. I mean, if you actually put in the work, you did everything you possibly could. You gave it all. Well, even then, I mean, that's the thing. If a person did everything they possibly could, they gave it all, they sacrificed everything. I mean, not that anyone should have to do that, but they gave the best of their abilities, and that wasn't good enough. Clearly, there's something wrong with who you're giving it to. And that's what they need to accept. That's what they need to confront about themselves in their childhood, is that, you know, naturally as a child, they gave everything. They gave their love, their loyalty, their devotion to their narcissistic parent, and that wasn't good enough. So clearly there was something wrong with the person who they were giving it to. Because if you give everything, you're always good enough. It's always something wrong with the other person who maybe can't receive it or can't appreciate it. And so that's the truth that they can't accept, is that deep down they feel inadequate. But then also because now they've lived a life for such a long time, now they have an arrested emotional development. They're children in adult bodies. So it's kind of too late for them in many ways. I mean, because the amount of work that it takes for them to go back to their childhood, start again, build themselves back up, that takes a lot of effort, a lot of strength. Lifelong therapy. And it's just so overwhelming for them. And that's why many of them, most of them, just never want to be self-aware. They never want to self-reflect, to accept that they're just a child in an adult body, and that their entire life they've just been pretending to be something they're not. It's a very difficult thing for them to accept. But you know, it's something we all have to accept. We all have to begin our healing journey. We all have to accept that we're not who we were told that we are by our parents or teachers or whoever it may be. And we should all go back to our childhood and question everything, right from the beginning. Because that's how we're going to find who we really are. That's what's going to build a strong character. And that's how I myself, as you know, I've been through so many extreme events in my life. So many things have happened to me with so many different people, and I've been targeted so many times, so many smear campaigns, gang stalking. And yet despite that, here I am for you today. I'm still able to make these live videos every day. I still work very hard, even though I get practically nothing in return for it, and I'm still going. Because I've actually done the work. I've gone within and built a strong character. And that's how I'm able to do this, despite all of the provocation, the disruption, all of the chaos. While everything around me falls apart, I'm like the one thing that keeps going. Because I'm like the one person who actually did the work. Sorry about that. I don't know if the signal cut off or it just froze or something. But yeah, when everything falls apart around me, I'm the one thing that keeps going. Because I'm like the one person who actually did the work. I went within. I accepted my childhood. I accepted that, yes, of course, there were times that I felt very confused, misunderstood, even inadequate at times. I felt like I was nothing, like I wasn't even wanted. On many occasions throughout my life. That's why back in 2017, I even tried to take my own life. Because I'm conscious of myself. I'm connected to my emotions. I'm not trying to run away from them. I'm not trying to distract themselves. I'm real, I'm authentic. And by accepting that, of course, it was a close call for me back then. But I came back, I kept going. I built my strong character, and that's how you can check back of my videos of the past 6.5 years. Everything else around me changes. Everything else just seems to fall apart. You look at other YouTube channels, other TikToks, you see how much they've changed over the past 6.5 years. And with me, it's always just the same. Nothing ever really changes on you. Yeah, of course, I gain more experience, more wisdom. But other than that, I'm still the same person. I'm exactly the same person as you see in my videos 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And it's because I have a strong character. I know who I am. So while everything else tries to change me and disrupt me, they just end up disrupting themselves. They abandon themselves. They throw away their own morals, their own values. They destroy their own character, their own integrity. When as for me, I remain true to who I am. And I just keep going. And, that's my mission, that's my purpose here, is to be steady, congruent, unchanging, to be your rock, to be something that, you know, when things aren't going right for you in your life, when something is happening, whether it's with a friend, a family member, a relationship partner, when things are rocky, shaky, I'm someone that you can turn to. And yeah, that's what I want to be for you. Because I know sometimes times get hard. The world moves so fast, and I'm just a place where you can come, where things can just slow down. Everyone out there in the world, they're just seeking a sense of control over themselves and their lives. Instant gratification. But you know, what really helps us when we do just slow things down. And we just turn inwards, we just reflect. That's what we all need, is reflection. Reflecting on what happened to us and how it made us feel. That's healing. And not distorting anything, but accepting it for what it is. But yeah, reality does strike them. When you confront the narcissist, when you try to hold them accountable for something, there is that split-second window where they do self-reflect. And you may see that, and that's why it then causes a narcissistic injury. Especially when you reject them, you abandon them, or if you threaten to expose them. Something goes off in their heads and then they get very angry at you. Because that was like their neurocircuitry aligned to where they would then be connected and conscious of themselves, and they push it away. They don't ever want to be in their own energy. They don't ever want to reflect on themselves. They run away from it. And that's why they try to rewire your mind, try and pull you out of yourself. Because it's like when you're being yourself, just you and your natural energy, it's triggering them. It's like you're just naturally it's demanding something from them. Demanding them to show up as themselves because you're showing up as yourself. And that's why they like to rewire you, they gaslight you to the point where you don't even know who you are by the end of it. Because that's the only way they can feel comfortable, by not having to be themselves. So again, that's my description for this. Reality does strike the narcissist, and reality has struck me too. But I accept it, I take it, and I welcome it, yeah. I want reality to strike me. I want to be hit with reality. I want to see what it is. I want to see what's real. I want to see what's true. I welcome it. And I have been seeing it. I have been seeing what things are really like, how things really are. And while it may not be something appealing or desirable, I accept it for what it is, rather than settling for an idealistic notion of it. And yeah, it is what it is. It's like the narcissist, it is what it is. They are what they are. We have to accept that. That it's broken, scared children who feel inadequate in adult bodies, and they're doing everything to avoid reflecting on that. To the point where they become abusive, they become predators, exploitative, anything. Than to have to reflect on their own feelings of inadequacy, their own shortcomings. And that's really all that there is. Everything else, it's a fantasy, it's a distraction, it's a diversion. And that's it. That's why they can't be vulnerable. That's why they can't connect. That's why they couldn't open up to you. That's why you couldn't progress. You couldn't move forward in the relationship. Because you were asking them to show up as themselves, as the self that they've been running from their entire lives. That child self who feels inadequate, and naturally who you're going to have power over, which will cause them to feel very afraid, very distrustful of you. Naturally, they then lash out at you. They attack you. Kind of like if you see a hurt cat on the street and you try to take care of it and protect it, but then it might just try to scratch you because it's hurt, it's afraid, it's vulnerable. Same thing with a narcissist. When they attack, it's because they're hurt, they're afraid, they're vulnerable. And they don't ever want to be conscious of themselves. They don't ever want to connect to themselves. So that's why they then react in that way. So yeah, that's it. That's why they do what they do. But reality will hit them. This is why they're so controlling. This is why they micromanage everything. This is why you just can't even be yourself around them. Or even when you're not around them, what do? They hunt you down. You can never feel at peace because they're jealous of that. They're jealous of how you have your own separate individual self, where you feel happy and at peace, while being conscious of yourself, so you can be vulnerable and you can connect on a deep emotional level. And it's just not like that for them. They can't be happy for you. They can't have any empathy, compassion, because they've been running from themselves their entire lives. They never felt comfortable being themselves because they feel inadequate. And they see how it's not like that for you. You're genuinely confident. You're comfortable in your own skin. They're not. And that's why they don't ever want you to be comfortable in your own skin. Because they don't feel comfortable in theirs. They feel inadequate. They feel like they're not enough. And that's just how it is. How a person treats you is a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves. As within, so without. But yeah, that's all I got to say for this one. I hope you found it helpful. When reality strikes the narcissist, give it a thumbs up if it helped you. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I read your comments every day. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. I appreciate all of your donations, no matter how small. You're welcome to donate to my PayPal. It's paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you would like guidance and support on your healing journey, you can book a one-on-one with me on my website, It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you all for joining me on another live video, and I will talk to you soon.